The recently released Hitman 3 is one of the best performing games on the Xbox Series X and S, and IO Interactive is looking now to add ray tracing. What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another video. Thank you for stopping by. If you are new here and you enjoy what you see throughout this video, I'd really appreciate you hitting that subscribe button to join this community so we can have some awesome conversations in the comments below. But for now, let's jump into this. Hitman 3 has recently been released. It is a cross-generational game, but it has come out for the Xbox Series X, S, and the PlayStation 5. Now, there was a breakdown and a comparison between the Series X, S, and the PS5 versions. Now, in that comparison, I talked about it in a previous video. There is a difference between the shadows as well as the actual resolutions between all three consoles. On the Xbox Series S, it runs at 1080p with high textures and low shadows, PS5 at 1800p with ultra textures and medium shadows, and on the Series X at native 4K with ultra textures and high shadows. Now, that being said, it's pretty impressive in my opinion that you're getting those high shadows and ultra textures plus native 4K on the Series X, and then you're also even getting 60 frames per second with all three consoles, including the Xbox Series S running at 1080p. Now, that looks like this is just the beginning for Hitman 3, as IO Interactive is continuously working on the game and planning on pushing out post-launch improvements such as adding ray tracing to both the Xbox Series X and the Xbox Series S. So IO Interactive's Chief Technical Officer Mauricio De Pascal was talking with Xbox Wire, and he was talking about the ray tracing and the game itself and the post-launch additions, and here's what he said. "We see Hitman as a live game, and our launch date on January 20th is just the beginning of a journey in which we're going to keep working on a game and adding new features. It's great that the GPU in the Series X, S has hardware support for ray tracing. We've already started working on ray tracing technology for the renderer in our Glacier engine, and once that's deemed ready for prime time, we'll definitely bring it to the Series XS hardware." He continues on here saying that the power of the new Xbox makes it possible to bring our games to life on screen exactly as the development team originally intended, without the compromises and constraints from lack of CPU cycles or IO bandwidth, lesser hardware. The enhancements we've added for the new consoles allowed us to increase the fidelity of our simulation beyond what players have seen when playing Hitman 2 on the previous generation. For instance, the NPCs in each location are updated at a higher frequency in a larger numbers. Our cloth runs more iterations, destruction uses more shards and particles, and so on. It made a lot of sense for us to focus on improving resolution and frame rates because a lot of our source assets were already created as 4K ready, but for obvious reasons had to be scaled down on the previous generation hardware. On the Series XS hardware, we can finally take advantage of those extra details in source textures. Now, if you ask me, this is great news. Hitman 3 already looks good on both the Xbox Series X and S, but it's going to look even better once they add in that ray tracing, the reflections, and the lighting. When it's upgraded with ray tracing, it definitely does give it a big boost in the visuals. And I'm super impressed, again, that the Xbox Series S is going to be able to handle ray tracing. Now, what will that mean for the overall resolution and the frame rate on the Xbox Series S? It probably will have to be reduced. It probably will have to go down to 30 frames per second, but I could be wrong, maybe not, depending on how they implemented. The GDK for the Xbox Series X and S was delivered late to developers. It was only delivered in like June, or certified in like June, so they haven't had that much time to actually play around with it and work on it before the release of these next generation consoles. And it takes a lot of time in order to get up to speed with being able to optimize games with brand new GDKs. And this is just another example. If you look at the Series X version versus the PlayStation 5 version with the 4K, with the ultra shadows compared to the PS5, which is an 1800p and has the medium shadows, you can tell that developers like IO Interactive are getting up to speed with that GDK, and now they're going to be able to add in things like ray tracing after the game has actually been released. So it just gives them more time to continue to work with the GDK, work with the Series X, and work with the Series S. And the Series S being a $300 console, having the ability to have ray tracing is crazy to think about, because if you even just look at the GPUs that you buy, like an RTX card that supports ray tracing, they're already starting off, just the card alone is more expensive than an Xbox Series S, and a lot of them are more expensive than an Xbox Series X. I know for me personally, I bought an RTX 2080, which can support ray tracing, but it supports it, and you're not getting 60 frames per second. Sometimes it's even hard to keep that 30 frames per second on certain games, depending on the settings and everything. But the RTX 2080, when I bought it, was like $900 in Canada, and I don't even know what it is priced now, but I'm pretty sure it's still not that much less than it was 2 years ago. This all just goes back to the amazing value the Xbox Series X and S are. When you're getting locked 60 frames per second, you're getting native 4K, you're getting ray tracing, for the amount you're paying for those consoles. It's pretty crazy to think about. So I'm excited to see what ray tracing is going to look like on Hitman 3 when it is released. I'm also interested in seeing what this does to the performance of both versions of the games on the X and the S, but specifically I wonder how much it does to the Xbox Series S. Are they going to reduce that resolution to sub HD to maybe like 900p, or are they just going to reduce it to 30 frames per second and then allow ray tracing? Maybe they're going to have less amount of ray tracing on the S versus the X. I'm excited to see how that works out when this update is added. Anyways, guys, that's it for me. Let me know what you think about this in the comments below. Have you played Hitman 3? Are you excited for the ray tracing? And do you think right now on the Xbox Series X and the S, the game already looks great? Thank you guys for watching. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to hit that thumbs up button. If you are new here, you found this video informative and entertaining, I'd really appreciate you hitting that subscribe button to join this community, help this channel grow, and we can have awesome conversations with a great community in the comments below. Thank you again for watching. Thank you for your support, and I'll catch you in the next video.